Hey everyone, got another knife review. This is a knife review of the Spyderco Chokwe. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a knife that, when I first saw it, I thought was the most butt ugly knife in the world. With the straight edges, I think what they call the coffin design or something like that. I thought there's no way that this would make for a comfortable knife. I did see some knife reviews on YouTube that people were just raving about it, saying it's maybe one of the most comfortable knives that they've ever seen. But as I saw it opened up, it's like it's just like this triangle or trapezoid. I don't even know. It's just like these straight edges and this worn cleft blade. I was thinking this blade is just, there's no way that it would grow on me or anything like that. But I got it for a good price, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just try it out. And this knife, I would say, is a pleasant surprise. Quick rundown of the specs. You've got a closed length of 4.75 inches, and the overall length is 8.5 inches. You've got a blade length of 8.75 with a cutting edge of 3.375 inches. Obviously, you got the worn cliff, that straight plain edge blade. And this blade steel is S30V, and it is made in Taiwan. And then the overall weight is 3.7 ounces, so a very lightweight knife. They say the blade stock on this knife starts with a .125 or 3 millimeter blade stock, but it is a full flat ground blade starting at the right here. So full flat grinds down this way and this way. So as you get towards the tip, it makes for an incredibly thin knife. This knife I wouldn't even want to pry staples with, because I feel like I would bend it. But in its own right, though, it probably makes for one of the best slicing knives that I've ever owned. This knife, cutting through paper, this is probably one of the smoothest cutting, slicing knives that I've ever used. But again, that depends on the angles that you sharpen that and stuff like that. But because of the full flat grind, and because of how thin it gets near the edge, this knife really is a great slicer. This knife is modeled after an African tribe, the Chakwe people, or I don't even know if it's the Chakwe people, but yeah, in terms of that tribe, they call the knife the Chakwe, and it's kind of this utilitarian knife that they use for threshing and everyday cutting stuff. It's a fixed blade normally, and so what they did was they Spyderco, in their ethnic series, they just modeled it after that knife, and they put a Chris Reeve style frame lock on there, or integral lock on there, and then on the other side they have the stainless steel liner inside, as well as the G10 scales. And just like the normal Chakwe, apparently those knives have these two these little holes here, and it is a full flow-through design as well. So I think these holes are supposed to be there for grip, or maybe it just makes it lighter. I'm not sure why the actual Chakwe knife, like the original knife, has those holes in it too. Like if you were to look it up on the internet, those knives have those holes as well. The pocket clip is a cool thing. I mean, it's a small little feature, but on this knife, it's got like a grayish, almost like a gunmetal polished pocket clip. So it's not like the standard painted on black or anything like that. And then the spider emblem or icon, it's kind of like this goldish color. So it's a really sleek looking pocket clip, which makes for a nice looking knife. I originally bought this thinking that it would be a good gentleman's carry. It's definitely a very thin profile knife, perfectly centered and everything like that. But ultimately I carried it for a little bit, and ultimately down the road I just thought maybe this would be a good collector's knife, and so I stopped carrying it, stopped using it. The blade, being that it is a lot thinner and everything like that, I didn't want to put it to any kind of hard uses or even cutting boxes, even though I think it would probably hold up just fine. Lockup is rock solid, but you know, because it is so thin, you know, it almost feels like there's a little bit of play. It's not quite as solid as, you know, say a Sebenza. You know, it just you don't feel anything when you're pulling on the tip or anything like that. So anyway, so you know, overall, this knife would hold its own pretty much in any usage. I just haven't really put it to that kind of usage, but it is a great knife in its own right. So just to do a couple of size comparisons really quick. Again, here you have it against the large Sebenza, almost exact same specs in terms of the full length right there. Because of the Wharncliffe blade, I'm not a huge fan of Wharncliffe blade just because there's no belly, so sometimes it makes for it's harder to cut things, to just be able to kind of sweep down on it, you know, like this Sebenza here. So so that's Chakwe against my Lum Tanto right here. Again, almost the exact same length right there. Then you got it against the Spyderco Military. So it's actually a much larger knife than I thought it was going to be when I first bought it. You know, lengthwise, I think because it's just that, kind of that full straight edge. It kind of just, you know, without the curvature to kind of shorten it a little bit. I feel like it's definitely a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. And then here you have it against the Spyderco Delica. Alright, so that's my kind of overall impressions of the Spyderco Chokwe. It is a great little knife. In terms of price, what you pay for it, I mean, you get titanium frame lock, S30V, and just a great overall knife. You know, it fits really well. You know, this coffin design, thin in the middle here, and then kind of widens out. I want to say it's almost kind of like Strider. You know, like Strider knives, you would think that, you know, with that triangle shaped handle, that it wouldn't fit. Maybe it's like a little bit ugly at first, you know, but once you put this knife in your hand, and because it's so thin, you can get a really firm grip on here. No jimping at all on this knife. There's like a little bit of jimping right here on this micro choil. It's not, you can't even consider that a choil because it is so thin, or it is so shallow. But I guess it's there. But it's not going to lock your finger in or anything, especially your thumb's just going to slide up here. So anyway, so that's the Spyderco Chokwe. Yeah, that like triangular blade and all that kind of stuff. And I'll say this, you know, it's a weird looking blade, but once you get it in hand, it's surprisingly comfortable and, you know, more aesthetically pleasing than you would anticipate. Alright, so anyway, that's kind of like my impressions. Let me know what you think. Alright, thanks. Bye.